All right. Hope everyone's staying safe out there. I got a great podcast lined up for you guys today with Matt Maione. He's a fantastic player in person, and he's had a really cool career. And some of the highlights you guys can take out of it as an athlete, and particularly for hockey players, is the certainty he has and trust he has in himself, and the patience he had throughout his career. He really paved his own path. Not many guys have had the story he's had, and now the success he's had recently being in the KHL All-Star game last year and previous year, as well as getting to go to the Spengler Cup and win a gold medal this year. So really cool story. Listen to it, have fun, and if you're interested as well, you can join these daily calls. He'll be joining in soon. All right, enjoy, guys.
Campoli trying to clear it. Ball shoots, scores!
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me, Matt. And we got lots we can jump into today. But first, why don't you just tell us a bit about your career as just an overarching, like starting in minor hockey with you were playing with the Waxers mostly, and then you went to the OHL. Eventually the coast, and then to Europe, and then the KHL, and even the Spengler Cup this year. So, want to just give me the short summary of some of the highlights first and foremost?
I played for the Markham Waxers since I was 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Minor hockey throughout my minor hockey career, if you can call minor hockey a career, played for the same coach, same team, Paul Titanic, who is probably one of my biggest mentors, and to this day one of the best coaches I've ever had. Still to me a lot of qualities that I still have and still value outside of hockey, and I think that's really important at such a young age. And after that, I was drafted to Mississauga Dogs. I didn't go my first year. I actually played midget for them, and I played for Paul. And then I went, because I'm a late birthday, I was still 16, turning 17, going into the OHL. Played in that for a couple of years, went to Guelph, and then I was contemplating my OA year, didn't know what I wanted to do. I had some scholarship offers prior to the OHL, so I was actually able to get a full scholarship for CIS 4 years. Nice. I figured why wouldn't I pass up the opportunity of getting a degree, gaining that university experience, and still playing high-level hockey. So I elected to go to U of PEI, Prince Edward Island. I had an amazing coach there, Paving McPherson, who actually, because I made this decision late, I actually with him at his house for the first month of the school.
Oh, really?
So I actually had to because I committed late, and it was an unbelievable experience. I still have a lot of friends in PEI. I love it there out east in Charlottetown. Degree in biology and psychology.
Cool.
Happy that I was able to get something out of that. I played in the university winter games, and it was in Toronto. I think it's called the University Winter Games. I'm not quite sure what they call it now, but we won gold there for Team Canada, and Forby was an assistant coach there, and I played with a couple of my teammates on PEI. I had an opportunity to go to the East Coast, and there for I think 3 years. My last year, we lost in the finals, I think Game 6, playing for the Wheeling Nailers. Great team name.
It's a sick team name. And that was the year you were Defenseman of the Year in the East Coast, right?
Nice.
I
was. I mean, we had such a good team, such good. It was. I mean, if you take the top 4 teams in the East Coast, they competitive teams in the American League. So our team was an unbelievable team, great group of guys, and we still have a group chat and stuff like that. So we were a really close group. Went to Slovakia and played in Banska Bystrica, and there and played with ex-NHLers such as Ty Wishart, who was my D partner. He was an amazing player, great guy, good friend of mine. I played with Thomas Sorovi, who played actually with Sydney Crosby on the same.
Oh, cool.
Mike Hanzus.
And
he obviously won Stanley Cup with Chicago. And then the best part was I was coached by Richard Zetnick. He was my D coach.
Oh, cool.
Sack was my head coach, and both played in the NHL extensively.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Vlad Osak, he
Mm-hmm.
became the head coach of Bratislava in the KHL, so I played against him.
Yeah.
Back to from Slovakia, I went to Finland and
Yeah.
coached by Sami Kapanen.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool.
Unbelievable guy.
Yeah.
He's such a good human being, and he's good friends with Gary Roberts, who I've worked out with and trained with the past, I think 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Very influential into my development and my growth as a player and as a person. And the KHL in Riga for a year, and then this year was a little bit of a different year. I signed in China.
Yeah. Yeah.
I signed in Minsk for a trial, and then I was able to Minsk let me go and play in the Spengler Cup. Won a gold medal there, and then signed back with Riga for the remaining of the season. And yeah, so that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. And there's a lot of good people, a lot of influential people along the way. And
that's awesome. Yeah, it's a really cool story and career, and maybe we'll tackle some of the big things, because I think there's lots of great lessons you've learned. And one of the first ones I think is interesting, because probably a lot of guys in their draft year and stuff are listening, going from minor hockey to junior to pro, and those jumps and hurdles. So one of the ones I tackled, like obviously you guys had a pretty successful team, and like you said, Paul Titanic was as your coach, and it sounds like you had a lot of really good coaches. Good mentorships, but you want to maybe just talk a bit more about that team itself, because there's a lot of guys that have gone on from that team to be pretty successful, and so it kind of lessons learned and the experience playing with all those guys in minor hockey must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased, but I think we have probably the best minor hockey team to date.
Yeah.
There's seasons that we didn't lose a game, and we had. I mean, there's tons of good competition. The 90 age group, there's so many hockey players, NHL guys, and over in Europe as well. But some names that I played with in Markham, obviously Steven Stamkos, Cody Hodgson, Mike Otto, Cameron Gauntz. Dornbush played a game in the NHL, and then we have plenty of guys that were very successful at the OHL level, and then CIS level, and then obviously myself. And so it was an amazing group. But why I say that Paul was such an influential person and such a mentor for me was because he taught us humility, and because we were such a good team and at such a young age, he wouldn't let us run up the score. He taught us how to trap after 5 goals, or we'd have to pass the puck, make 5 passes. And there's certain things that we had to do in order to have respect for the other team and for the other players and for each other in practice. And there's little things like that I still think about, and I'm really thankful for all those different experiences that we had, like winning big games, but we also lost. My minor year, we lost in the OHF. And it was like an undefeated season before. I mean, that's an extreme high to an extreme low. So those experiences at such a young age, whatever it is, 15, and growing up, playing on such a good team and soaking up as much as I can from those guys. Those guys were all hardworking guys. Things obviously came a little easier to them, and their skill levels were exceptional, but the work ethic was there, and that's why so successful at that age and now.
No, that's awesome. And I know I'd actually interviewed Paul when I was first getting into coaching, and just to kind of pick his brain. So I know he's got a pretty cool story and did really well with that team. So that's awesome. What about now? You want to just touch on that, like the jump from minor hockey to the OHL, and then going through that experience. You're a later round draft pick. I think it was the 12th round, right? And then you played midget, which is jumping from midget to the OHL is not probably too common of a thing. And I know Ben did it as well, our buddy Ben that we know each other. You want to maybe just talk about that transition, that you're midget, and probably, like you said, you're probably thinking a bit about NCAA versus OHL. You want to just maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, at that age, I
Yeah.
mean, I wasn't thinking too much about school. My parents were
Yeah.
were the ones pushing me to get an
Yeah.
education, to use hockey, to that experience. So I think that with the jump, the way I looked at it was I went to junior A camps, and at the time, I think they could only take 2 underagers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And if you're and Markham, I think they I don't remember who they took, but at that point, I was a little bit undersized. Not now, but I was, I was probably like 5'6".
Yeah.
And as a D-man, you're playing against 21-year-olds. I was still developing, physically and mentally. And I think that me playing midget, it gave me the opportunity to play in all situations, which to do. And in junior A, a lot of those underagers, they kind of get buried, or unless you're an exceptional player, you're not going to be top 2 lines or top 2 for D or for forward. So my own sense was to get out there, to play as much as I can and develop that way, to wait for me, because I feel like I'm a little bit of a late bloomer.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to be coached by Paul and to be on such a good team, and to have those opportunities and to learn. And I think that with me playing, developing, I was way better off than me sitting and playing, or whatever, being on a junior A team.
Yeah.
So that was my I guess mentality towards that situation, my outlook. The jump, it wasn't easy. I mean, I kind of have my my bases where I have to work, and I have to work for everything I have, and it was speed and the physicality, and obviously the tactics were a lot different in the OHL than they were in midget. But you go through camp and you gain confidence, and you try to latch on to certain players and see what they do, and learn in different situations. So I think that was me by just observing and watching, and being in that environment. I was kind of forced, if I wanted to do this, if I wanted to play OHL, these are the steps that I had to take. I had to be a little bit more physical. I had to read the game a little faster. I had to work a little harder. So all these little things added up to me playing and me being able to contribute to the OHL team.
No, that's awesome. And and it's, it's just breaking it down, focusing on what you can control, right? Just, and one thing I talked to a lot of players about is just managing expectations, right? So it's like, going in knowing it's going to be a bit harder, but like if you do the right things, keep progressing. And so you went on, had a pretty decent OHL career, and then made that jump, and then went to U PEI, obviously, and then you made steady progress there too. And obviously, like you said, I think the Team Canada kind of, or winning the gold medal in that university kind of what do they call it, like the Olympic kind of thing? It's not the Olympic.
Yeah, I was like
it's kind of like there's other.
I think it's called the University Games.
University Games, right? So it's so it's just pretty cool, and obviously like U Sports or CIS back then, right, is a pretty big. It's that's pretty good hockey, and being on that level of to represent Canada and stuff was pretty cool, and obviously did well. So I would assume, like, I think that's like your career just keep going, right? And you're just making steady progress. And I don't know if you want to touch on that as well, because you talked about Forbes and your coach there. And it sounded like that was a pretty formative part in your life as well. So because those are big years, right? That's like when you were about 20 to 24, right? So it's just like
I was 20 to 24. Those were 4 years. And that's part of the reason why I didn't want to play in OHL as an overage. I figured, well, I was taking courses. I was at and I was taking courses, and I was continuing my schooling. So I noticed that I wasn't going to play in the American League. If anything, I'd be American League East Coast. So I felt that was always going to be there for me. So I might as well take advantage of the opportunity that I have, and that I play university hockey. So I was looking around and I was looking at Guelph and looking at certain schools in Ontario, and then I did some more research and I found out how competitive and good the AUS was, and
Yeah.
they have St. Mary's, UNB, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of good schools and teams, and the hockey. So that's the first thing that I kind of was drawn to, and then I was speaking to a couple teams, and then I was talking with UPEI and Forby.
Mm-hmm.
They flew me down there. I went around, looked at the school, went to like a golf tournament, and
Yeah.
I instantly knew that this is where I wanted to go and this is where I wanted to be. And
Mm-hmm.
I had then, as I touched on earlier, I lived with him in the first month because I couldn't find a. So then I shacked up with another teammate in off campus, and but I think that it was one of those things where it was lucky and meant to be for me to be there.
Yeah.
And I think that with we had such a good group there too. I mean, we made the playoffs every year that I was there.
Yeah.
We didn't make it past the first round. We probably played UNB or somebody in the first round, but it's an amazing experience, I think, for athletes to experience OHL. At that age, that is the highest you can play. That's the best hockey that you can play. For me, I was happy doing that, and when I was seeing that I wasn't as successful as some of the other teammates that I had in minor hockey, I had to rethink and regroup and say, okay, what do I want? What my objectives here? Like, well, what do I go from here? And I think that I kind of reassessed my situation. Okay, well, I played the OHL, but how is that going to help me in life? And then I'm having my influence, my parents saying, you should think about school, and I was taking classes, and I just thought, for me, it's not for everybody, and I know that's the truth, that school and hockey, managing the time, and
it's not easy.
very seriously. It's especially in the sciences, as had five course load plus three labs, and so depending on the exams, and so it wasn't an easy process for me by any means, but I'm happy that I went through it. And my first year was definitely a learning experience, because there's a big difference between taking full course load and playing hockey than taking one or two classes in the OHL. So it's one of those things that you have to kind of be ready for it mentally, and I finally was, and that's the reason I went to NCAA. I went to the OHL because I wanted to play there, and I wasn't ready for school. And then I was so happy that I went there, because I still have a lot of lifelong friends, and I brought ex-teammates from the Ice Dogs there, and Forby was really influential person there. He's actually Sydney Crosby's cousin.
Oh wow, cool.
He's played pro, and he's played for, he played a number of years, won a lot of championships, and he's a very good leader. And I was just very happy to have a good relationship with him to this day. And he gave me the opportunity to play like power play and penalty kill. I was playing all situations. I was relied upon, and I was a leader. And so those are things that I definitely credit to me, like where I am now. Without those experiences, gaining those those qualities, because obviously I didn't think that I had them before. I was gaining leadership quality. I was maybe more focused mentally. I was more driven. So because I had common goals with a lot of those players, like get in and play high level hockey. So I'm really, really happy that I went there, and it was an unbelievable experience.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think one of the things that I think definitely highlights throughout your career is just the choices you make in terms of where you went to play and when. And seems like you made pretty smart choices, like pretty much along the way, whether playing that year midget, then going to the OHL, then not doing your OA year, but going to UPI, which was a great place to develop. And then, and then so forth and so forth. You seem to find places where you could play, where there was great leadership and great personnel and a great fit. And I think that speaks a lot to your development in your career, and also to you as the person choosing where to go, right? So, I think that's something that's standing out already, and even just knowing you in your career. So, well, that's great. Well, the next things that would be cool, we'll kind of stay on your career path here, is just then going to the coast, and like that experience, and now jumping into pro hockey. Obviously went pretty well, and especially like defenseman of the year. So what was it just like going to play in the East Coast League? And you guys, I think you started in Brampton, right? And
no, I started in Fort Wayne.
Actually, it's actually Fort Wayne first. Right.
I finished the year off in Fort Wayne. I actually didn't go to my graduation. For PEI, but the funny thing is they PEI sent my degree in like tube. And, I got a notification that it was delivered, and I wasn't at home. I was in Fort Wayne, and my parents were like, "There's no box here. There's no like." I'm like, "No, it says delivered." So they saw it was like rolling down the road because it was in the middle of, I think it was February or something. It was snowing at the time. It was just in the wind and in the snow in this tube. So I was so thankful that my parents, obviously they could have sent another one, but found it. Funny. I just thought that was hilarious. It's like after 4 years, I was lucky enough to get a scholarship, but a lot of people aren't. They're in debt, and there's things that they have to do financially in order to get a degree. There goes mine down the street in the snow, and I'm not even there. I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I think that's like one of the funny, ironic things, because you put some
for sure
into something and it just like flies away. But my first experience was in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I finished the season off there. And the East Coast back in my, it was a little bit different than what I'm watching now. But it's and I'm sure it was different even further back. It's a little bit rougher, the league. It's a little bit, they let you play. That was it was definitely a learning experience for me, because pro hockey is a lot different. The stakes are a lot higher than any. And I didn't know the coaches, so it's a very unfamiliar situation for me, because from school, you know every single player, know every team you're going to play, know the schedule. Not knowing anybody on the other team, not knowing anyone on your team, not knowing the coach. That was very testing time for sure. We had a good team and a good group of guys. We lost in the conference finals. I actually was suspended. I got kicked out the last game for throwing a hit. So, and then the following year they protected me, so I wasn't able to sign anywhere else. And you go to camp and did all this sort of stuff, and then they cut me. I had a 2-game suspension. They start off the season right. All the stuff that they coaches and management tell you all the time for their own personal gains. So I got cut. Then I was looking for a team, and I was able to, play at home in Brampton, and I think that with being able to stay at home, drive to Brampton every day, and playing, East Coast pro hockey, it was amazing for me, because I've been away since I was 16. So back at 24, it's definitely it was hard. It was a good time, but it was hard because our closest road trip was 12 hours away. So because that's when the CHL and the East Coast merged, and they had to make sure the divisions were even. So our closest road trip was Quad City, and so we were a lot, and that's why I really was thankful I had a degree, because there's a lot of guys on that team that didn't have anything to fall back on, and that's the reality of professional hockey, is that you're not getting paid much. You're doing it for the love of the game, and happy that I was able to have that degree and to be able to play and do something I love, and always go back or fall back on it. And that was important for my like mentality, because riding 12 hours, so on the bus, smacked 8-1 or something. And so we were not very good the first year, and the second year we were okay, and I had an opportunity to go to Wilkes-Barre, and I stayed there for a bit. And then when I went back to Brampton, the season hadn't started yet, but they had a new coach and stuff like that. They also protected me in Brampton, so I could sign anywhere else. And then the coach had a bright idea of putting me up on forward. Now, I was at this time, I was leading the team in points as a D-man.
Yeah.
Second year there, and it was a new coaching staff and everything. And I didn't really get along because, I told him that I wanted to be successful in the player role that as a defenseman. I said, it's obvious that we need some forwards, but, this is how I can help the team. And I'm very glad with my decision there because I knew I wasn't going to be successful as a forward because I've never played it before. I'm age at 25 years old in the East Coast. If I'm playing the East Coast, I'm going to be happy. I want to, do what I can and to enjoy hockey. And I had a good relationship with the Wheeling coach from Wilkes-Barre. His name is Clark Donatelli. He was the head coach of Wilkes-Barre last year for a couple of years, and they traded me and to Wheeling and Brampton. It was kind of a different situation there, but I'm very happy that I got out of there and I was being able to play the position that I wanted to play and on a successful team. And that's when I ended up being Defenseman of the Year and first team All-Star. And, it was kind of to prove that coach wrong and to prove the organization wrong that, they tried to pigeonhole me into something that I knew I wasn't going to be successful in.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to show them that this is my identity and my identity as a player and as a person. And I'm going to stick with what I know I can be successful with. And we were successful and I was successful personally. And I want to stress this, that you're not going to be successful. And that's the thing. Like a lot of players on that Wheeling team are playing in the American League, playing in Europe somewhere. And so I think that's something to be said about a winning team and, success.
Yeah. So when your teammates are having success, it helps you, right? So, and so many guys lose sight of that, especially a lot of the guys, I know and work with in the draft year. It's like, they put it about them and stuff. And, there's so much, and that's, again, all the leaders and coaches you've had probably definitely helped instill that with you. I think that's a great lesson. And then what about, and obviously you kind of just touched on like the pressures of all of a sudden kind of the stakes, raise a bit and being able to manage that. And then how about but then the transition to go to Europe, because like being, defenseman of the year in the East Coast League, you kind of like hope to make the jump to the AHL. And I guess you were probably in some talks with some teams, but you made the decision to go to Slovakia instead. So what kind of, again, one of the things I'm highlighting again, I think the decisions you made throughout your career were, pretty tactful and often worked in your favor. So maybe you want to talk us through that one as well.
I think the common theme of all those decisions are being able to play. That I can be happy and develop as a player as being on the ice.
Yeah.
And I had some offers to in the American League, but the type of player that I am and the way that I am as a person, I know that I wouldn't be happy being in that 6th or 7th role. And that seeing a guy that I think I'm better than, or that I think that I work harder, or whatever the case may be, I'm not in that situation because of, contracts. A person could be in an NHL contract. You could have a good relationship with the coach, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I base a lot of my decisions on how I'm going to play, what's my feeling on the situation. I do my research on the teams, and I just felt like because I played in the East Coast for 3 years and I knew how things worked, and with the NHL guys coming down and me developing, I just felt like, I'm still in, pretty good shape here. I still have some offers elsewhere outside of North America. I think that I should explore them. And once I talked to Julius Koval, Banska Bystrica, and did some research, some guys, and watched some games, I was like, this is high level hockey. I mean, this is, there's a lot of Slovaks in the NHL, and they came out of this league. And so I just figured, for me, it's a clean slate. It's something that I know that I can do. And I wanted to test myself, because in the East Coast, after playing there for, 3 years, I knew what to expect. I knew the game. I knew how to, play my game within the game. And I was, always thinking NHL, but then I had to stop. And I'm like, okay, well, now I have this option. Now, where do I go from here? So if I sign in Slovakia, where am I going to go? Like, what's the next league? So I started to Europe, because a lot of the time I didn't know anything about Europe.
Yeah.
Sweden, Finland, these teams, national teams are good. They have good programs. You don't know the leagues, and you don't know the pay and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I was naive. I didn't know. I should have done more research over there. Maybe I would have gone sooner. But yeah, so that's kind of how I base my decision on how I'm going to play.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, where am I going to go from here? And, what's the highest league? And that's KHL. So worked it in my contract. My agent did. Andrew, his name is. He's had me since I was in school, and he worked it in there with Julius Koval, the GM, that I would have a 2-way contract. So I'd have my base salary for when I'm playing in Slovakia, and for Banska, and then there's if I'm doing well or there's an injury, the KHL team in Bratislava can call me up. And so I figured, I said, hey, listen, like that's a lot better situation for me to be in. Yeah. And then me going and being a 6'7" on an AHL team, when there's a young guy that needs to play and develop because he's drafted to the NHL, and there's an older guy that's been and he's done his time. So I'm kind of in the middle there. Now I'm going to Slovakia. I have something to prove that I can play at this level. I can move up, because then it gives me a motivation. It gives me something to strive for. So I picked there, and obviously I wanted to choose a team that I can be successful with, and that was a successful team. And they lost in the finals the previous year. Yeah. So they didn't make too many changes, brought in a couple of new imports, and we ultimately won the championship, and I had a very good year. There. And it was funny, because during the year, my agent would be calling like the KHL, like, listen, hey, Matthew's leading the D in points, leading the league, blah, blah. And they would be like, sorry, we just don't have the money, because I would have to jump up and they'd have to pay me that salary. They would call me up. So they were calling up a young guy that was like 6th or 7th on our team to the KHL, because
it was less money.
They couldn't pay it, right? So and they folded the team this season, so they weren't in the KHL, and they had some years where it was tough, but paying guys and stuff like that. But it was an unbelievable year. I was actually back there this year to drop the puck. Yeah, I still have a really good relationship with the owners and Elias, the GM, and it was just an unbelievable season for me, because it was like it was different. It was different, and everyone was like, "Why are you going to Slovakia?" Like, so it was something that I kind of liked to pave my own path, and have something that's my own, and not that this guy did this. Oh, he's just like that other player, and I don't think that there's any other player that has gone through the different things that I've gone through to get where I am. 100%. And that's, based on those decisions. I want to play. So where do I think I can play? Where can I go from there? What's motivation? How am I going to get there? What do I have to do to get there? So they're the types of things that I, that's how I chose Slovakia, and that's kind of how I chose the next year in Finland. I looked, and it just happened that they lost in the semifinals the year before I got there. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of like similar to what I had in Slovakia. And, then I played with my there was Ryan Wilson.
I know. I play with Ryan. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he was my D partner, and he allowed me to play my offensive style. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Finnish hockey is very different than everyone has their own style of hockey. And
Yeah.
that Slovakia is actually very similar to the East Coast. Like, it's physical and there's fights, and
Yeah.
it was an easier transition for me to go there my first year than if I would have gone from there to Finland. Finland was tactical, a lot more systematic, and it's also physical there. But what's different in Finland is that there's 3 different ice surfaces size.
Mm-hmm.
So there's NHL size, Olympic, then they have the Finnish hybrid. So from one game to the next, you adjust, and as a D-man, it's a little, because you use the dots, but then all of a sudden you have an extra couple feet on each side. So guys are just entering the zone way easier because you're protecting the middle. And so that's when tactics come in. And so yeah, it's been a different ride for me, but that's kind of how I've picked all of my, the teams and my next steps, where I can play, where I can be successful, and where they would accept my team and let me play my game to help the team win or to help the team be successful.
Yeah, no, those are awesome. And again, I think it's a great journey and story. Like you said, there's nobody else with that exact story for sure. And, and that journey. And I think it's important because, I remember being a kid, and it's like, okay, this is what my journey is going to look like. Like, Joe, Steve Yzerman or Joe, Wayne Gretzky. Like, I'm like, no, like very few do the McDavid Crosby path. There's so many different stories, and a lot of guys' careers probably really get derailed trying to be like them instead of, finding your own path and listening to your own feelings and making educated decisions and doing your research. Right. So, I think it's a great lesson for people. And like, I think did you finish 3rd in the league in scoring as a D in Slovakia that year? Was it up there?
Yeah, actually, I still hold the record for the most points there. And so a really good team. Like, we had, a lot of guys point per game and stuff like that.
So that helps. But
I think Nagy won the league.
Okay.
So he was NHL in LA for 8-9 years. So he was. There's so many good players there. Against Stumple. Do you remember Stumple?
Yeah.
He's using a wood stick.
Was he?
Against them. If you can believe it. Like, a wood stick. It was unbelievable. The guy was like 4 years old. He was using a wood stick. So, he was a tank. Like, you couldn't even know him. Like, so there's a lot of cool different stories that I have. And then obviously playing against Datsuk was cool.
Yeah.
First couple times.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But I think that, like, for, touching on paving your own path, like, I think that that's the number one thing, is that, like, you can't just, everyone's trying to be molded into the same kind of player, the same kind of money. And I think why I was different was because I was a small defenseman in an era that small defensemen weren't successful. Like, there's a handful of guys in the NHL when I was watching as a young player, and it was like Brian Rafalski, Joe Michael Lyles, like maybe 2. I don't even.
I think that was it.
Under 5'11". Like, I don't know. Now, I mean, you got Jared Spurgeon, Crew, tons of guys that are very successful, and it's one of those things where obviously hockey is changing, and maybe I'm a little bit later to the party, but I had to find a way to be successful and to handle bigger guys down low defensively, to win more puck battles and to do certain things. And took me some time and skills. That's what you had to learn. You had to learn skills for your body, for your type of game, for your, your own player, to be successful. So that's part of why I guess my journey is a little different, because I had to, find where I can fit in. Because if this is what I wanted to do, and I was putting everything I had into it, I had to make sure that, where I was going to go, I was setting myself up to be successful.
Not just hoping, but doing your research and being smart about it. I think that's great. And then what about and then obviously epitomizing, I don't know if you want to touch on just briefly, like the KHL All-Star game. That was pretty cool. You have the guitar thing. I'm sure I'll repost that again on, make sure the people that listen know all about it. But that was pretty cool. And then the Spengler Cup. So now you're getting some pretty big accolades, and and
Yeah,
successes. So
it was.
it's
I
just
mean,
that
my
experience.
my first year in the KHL, I couldn't have gotten any better. I mean,
Yeah.
we missed the playoff by 1 point on a lower budget team in the KHL. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's obviously really difficult in that division. I think in that conference because you're playing all the teams from Moscow, St. Petersburg, and
Yeah.
Jokerit, who's in Helsinki, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a really really competitive conference. Both conferences are, but I think it's harder to make the playoffs on the West because of those Moscow influenced teams. They have the money, they have amazing imports, and obviously a lot of good Russians. To miss a playoffs by 1 point was heartbreaking. That's for sure. It came down to the last game.
Oh.
Iska and like the best team in the league. They won it all that year.
Oh.
Oh yeah, it was heartbreaking, but I was very lucky. The coach and GM, he was both coach and GM. Kurt Zankipants, he's an older school guy mentality wise, so it took him some time to come around to my game.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, USSR, they wanted the D-man to give the puck to the forward, and the forwards create all the offense. They're the guys that are creative, skilled, and they wanted like simple plays. And I had to learn, obviously, to play within his system, play within how he wanted me to play. And we kind of found that happy medium where he would give me some leash and let me do certain things that I would want to do to feel creative, to feel the game. And I would do certain things that he would want me to see in order to lead the team defensively. And he always made a good point. When guys are watching you think defense first, then as you're like one of the more offensive guys, they're thinking, okay, like this is what we have to do. So that's kind of the leadership role that I took on, is I had to lead by example. And he gave me the power play time. He gave me all the I guess the situations to succeed. I just had to do it, and I knew my ability that I knew I could be successful. And I played with another really good player, Linus Vidal, who is an import Swedish guy, and he's an amazing player. Had a great year, and there's so many good Latvian players that I played with. Our captain Larry is he's captain of Latvia for the past couple of years, world championship teams, and I credit a lot of my success points wise to these guys, because we had an understanding. We were in sync, and we had that flow when we were playing together, and we had that trust where we knew where guys were going to be and how to be successful. A lot of communication. So that was an amazing experience, and that's what led me to the KHL All-Star game. And once there was a vote, and I was voted number one and any other player in the league. And I was like, that's unbelievable. And like there's Kirill Kaprizov or Kaprizov. Kaprizov, who's actually an amazing player. He's going to be next year. And he scored that Olympic gold goal for Russia. So I got more votes than him, and Oz, who's a legend in the league, played in the league for like 8 years. And so that was like really humbling. I was like, oh wow, like that's because I think that a lot of people that were watching hadn't seen a player like me, because back when Russia was just like the Russian league, there wasn't any offensive defensemen. And to this day, there aren't that many offensive defensemen in the NHL or in the KHL that like to rush the puck, like to join the offense. A lot of them are more stay at home with those offensive instinct abilities, but maybe they don't jump in as much. I was voted the most, and then I guess they were doing research on me. And I get like this unknown call coming from to my cell phone, and it says like Russia. What? I don't pick it up at first, and then after they call again, I was like, okay, I'll just pick it up. And I'm like, hello, and they're like, oh hi, it's Oleg from the KHL. Hi, Oleg from the KHL. Like, what's going on? They're like, we see that you play guitar. Like, would you like to make a performance in Kazan? And I'm like, no, like, I don't want to. I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's like, no thanks. Like, Mosey Atkins there. Daxuk's probably going to be there. Like, no, I'm doing it. Like, I don't want to make this a joke or anything like that. And they kept calling, and they're like, listen, we're putting a lot of money into this event in Kazan, and we're doing all this stuff and organizing everything, and we'd really appreciate it that you do it, and it's for the fans. KHL, it's supposed to be a show, and so they kind of, and I figured, okay, well, you know what, like, maybe I should seriously consider this, because the once in a lifetime experience that I didn't go this year, so I mean, it is a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
So I gave him like kind of a list of songs, and I said, hey, listen, like, what do you guys want to hear? That I feel comfortable playing and singing and stuff like that. And they're like, you pick the song you want. So I picked the Lumineers, Ho Hey, and I went day before, so they flew in Michelle and I had another one of my teammates, Larry, the captain of the team, and he Darzan's his last name, and him and his wife, and they flew us to Kazan, and we went there day before, and I did like a set check. Mike. So because I told him, I said, listen, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right. So, like, I want, like, guitar, and I want to know exactly when it's gonna happen, how it sounds. So I did like a couple practices there. And, and I just went by myself, met them all, and I did it all. And then then the next day I was really nervous, obviously, and stuff like that, but I just had fun with it, and I was I was pleasantly surprised with the positive feedback, and I didn't think it would get all the way back here to the TSN and Canada, because I mean, me growing up, watching TSN and stuff, you never saw the KHL, you never saw or Sweden, Finland, we never saw European hockey, and so I didn't even think about that, and then it kind of blew up, and for the most part, like I said, there's a lot of positive feedback, and then after that, I saw my buddy Mathew Maione start playing the guitar for the KHL All-Star stuff, and I think it kind of prompted them to be a little bit more creative, and I guess show that hockey players are more than just a hockey player, and that's one of the main things that I was thinking about was, I wanted to respect the game, and I wanted to respect the players that were there at that All-Star game. It is a big deal, and guys, I worked really hard to be there, and I worked really hard that year to be. So I didn't want to have all that hard work diminish because it was a joke or anything like that. Kind of take the stance where hockey players have a lot more depth than just being a hockey player. Guys have degrees, have different hobbies. Guys can, play certain instruments, speak languages. There's a lot more to hockey players than what people see on TV or what they see when they come to a game and stuff like that. They're fans. And, it's just not an entertainment. It's not just a performer. And that a lot of people kind of just get caught up in that. And then being, on a larger stage, you kind of see, where you can kind of take a stance on it. And that's kind of how I approached it.
No, I think that's awesome. I think that was really well articulated, because, it's something I'm talking to a lot of players right now in our daily group calls. Is just like, there's more to you than just being a hockey player and an athlete. And we might all be quarantined right now, but in different ways and lockdown, but everybody can keep growing and learning in different areas, right? Obviously on their mental game and but working out, but there's more to life than just preparing for hockey, and having other hobbies, and knowing part of that identity is really important, because if I'm a good or bad person based on how I played today in this hockey game, like that's a lot, that's not healthy, right? So anyway, so kudos to you in doing that, and I thought it was really well articulated. One thing I do want to make sure we get into is just again, I think we've done a great job of highlighting like paving your path. But I would still, assume maybe to some degree levels of doubt and the level of belief in yourself and your journey there, being obviously tested at times, right? I think you touched on it a bit earlier, but maybe just elaborating a bit more, because, a common question we get is like, do other players doubt themselves? And I was like, yeah, there's doubt creeps in, and, or struggling with confidence, and even just like your long-term beliefs. Since, obviously you probably had, some strong foundation set with Titanic's team and the Waxers and throughout. But just, that belief in where you're going to go and have the hockey career, and the confidence and belief and doubt, and how those things kind of wrap together throughout your journey. I don't know if you could touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what comes to mind with confidence is that you can't just turn it on and off.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a process. For me, I'll just go back to midget year. I went and, it was kind of like more of an ego thing to play in the junior A, to say you're playing in junior A.
Yeah.
There's probably only a handful of guys who were, drafted to the OHL that weren't playing junior A. Like, most guys are playing there, or they were playing in the NHL or in the OHL.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was kind of, taken back by, the positive feedback that I had, like from players and coaches, and, because I was talking to other teams, and I wasn't really set on, playing midget. But then when I was talking to other guys, and I was thinking, well, maybe I'll play midget, maybe I'll AP, like I'll go up for a couple games and, see, but like, I don't really, I want to play. Like, I think that was the biggest thing, where a lot of people go more where their ego is,
Mm-hmm.
Like, to say they're, on a junior A team, rather than to have the confidence in yourself to be successful in midget.
Mm-hmm.
To say, you know what, like I can play here. I know I can play here, but I'm going to play here and get better. I think that's like one of the biggest
Mm-hmm.
things. I'm going to use this as a springboard and use this to gain more confidence. So when I, am of age, I can go OHL, or I can be a contributor in junior. So that was my kind of my confidence thing, where, I had to believe in myself, but the way that I was thinking, how I approached the situations, when people gave me feedback on how I was asking junior A coaches questions, or, the other midget teams questions, they're like, well, that's like, that's really, I didn't think of it like that, or that's really, a different way of thinking at it. It gave me confidence in, myself, and believing in how I should proceed. And that's when I'm like, okay, how I'm approaching it, because that was my first major decision.
Yeah.
My first decision was to play midget, not junior A.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was asking questions and getting a lot of positive feedback on how I'm approaching the situation, it gave me confidence as a person. And when, you're a confident person, it kind of translates to your, on ice performance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I started. And then, I was playing well, we did well, and obviously ended up in the OHL, but then the OHL didn't go as planned.
Mm-hmm.
That's another setback. Okay, here's number 2. So, you're not playing as much. There's younger guys. They're drafted to the NHL. You can play as an OA, but, you're not going to get as much minutes as you want, or you think you're going to want. So I had to reassess it again. Okay, so what's another thing that's going to hit me? It's just ego.
Mm-hmm.
To play away or away season, or to go CIS. I'm like, well, what's a year early for me? If I'm going to go there, and I'm not going to play in the AHL, the East Coast is always going to be there. AHL is always going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I even let that, hit my ego? I'm just going to go and be more of a forward thinker.
Mm-hmm.
So I approached it, and that's what that gave me more confidence. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I think that it was that those plans and those, the choices that I make, it was, what's going to be the outcome. Like, okay, well, if I make this choice, I'm going to get a degree after 4 years, and then I can play in the East Coast, maybe AHL.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the AHL and East Coast, and I go up and down, I get hurt or something happens, then I don't know what's going to happen. The uncertainty of it kind of, it was a deterring factor.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I went back, okay, you know, I have to have confidence in myself, confidence in my ability, and then confidence in how I'm going to approach the situation. Because when you make that decision, you feel a little lighter, you feel excited, you feel that motivation. And then I was very lucky. For 4 years, I had, you know, I was given every opportunity, everything that I possibly want as a player there. And then in the East Coast, that's when I said it was testing times, because I was in and out of the lineup.
Yeah.
Healthy scratch from being, you know, a leader on the team, captain of a university team, and won a gold medal, was a captain on that team.
Yeah.
And for Team Canada, like a lot of those players played AHL, East Coast, Europe, KHL. And then all of a sudden you go and you're another setback. You know, your lineup today, and you ask why, they can't give you a reason. I'm just like, well, that's after 4 years of university, you know, university where you're playing the game, practicing, whatever it is. Now it's like, okay, well, it's definitely testing times, because now there's not even a reason why you're out of the lineup. It's just, you know, sorry, we're just going to play this guy because we feel like it. So it was hard, because mentally I was like, did I make the wrong decision? Like, I'm missing my friends, my graduation. There's so many things that you're missing, and you're going and just, you know, trying to follow your dream as, you know, play professional hockey and do something that you love. And I just kind of mentally, I just said, you know, this is my decision. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to make the best of the situation. And I just worked hard when I was healthy scratch. And if they told me to bag, I'd just bag. And once the, you know, the hockey was done, I guess I was lucky, because I would just kind of cut the cord. I would leave it there. And then when I was outside, I would have fun with my teammates, relax, and try to keep, you know, my, you know, like work, I guess, at work. Not while I'm with me to be miserable because I'm not playing. I always, you know, I was very grateful that I had that degree. I was very grateful that I had those experiences playing the OHL and playing with all those guys. So at that point, I was just happy to be able to do something that I loved. I didn't think I was going to. So along the way, I just kind of have to stop. And I've learned that everything up until now, even, I'm very grateful for all those experiences, all those setbacks, all those failures, because it showed me that it doesn't matter how good you think you are. You know, there's always a lot more to learn, always a lot more to get better at. And especially this year, you know, we'll skip forward to this year where, you know, I had a lot of different choices where to play and what I was going to do. And for, you know, for reasons, you know, of that, I wanted to play, and I thought it was a good opportunity for me to play and to grow the game in China. It just didn't work out that way. You have to live with those consequences of making decisions that don't go in your favor. And, you know, that's after coming, you know, I think I was second in the league for D points and blah, 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 all the stuff that, you know, people look at and you're like, oh, you had a great year, but, you know, they didn't watch a game. You know, to see how you competed, to see how many block shots you had, to see, you know, you are on the bench and, you know, in the dressing room and stuff like that. So I think that, you know, it's another setback. And it was really difficult, because that's an extreme high. I couldn't have gone any higher than being in the KHL All-Star game. Going low to being bought out and basically cut by a team that you chose to go to. That, you know, that's something that I had to deal with internally. And, you know, it's an internal struggle. And you know, it was with me for, you know, probably a month after. And I was home, and I was like, you know, like, this is real. Like, I have to kind of figure out how to climb out of this hole. And that was a big blow to my confidence. I wasn't getting the opportunities to play. It wasn't those things that I was promised. I wasn't getting I needed to be successful, and I wasn't successful there. You know, it doesn't matter that, you know, you made the decision. You have to think, okay, you know, what's on to the next? How can, you know, get back on the horse, as people say, you know, get where I want to go, and how be successful, and why am I doing these things? Why am I going through all these different struggles? And that, you know, in my head, you know, for my family, for Michelle, and you know, I have got mortgage payments. You know, there's things everybody has, And there's people that are always going to want to take your job. So you have to be able to deal with all of these, and it's heightened at the KHL level.
Oh,
and the most that I've ever experienced. But I think that with Minsk, I went there on a tryout because I was actually injured. I was playing a little bit injured in China. So I wasn't going to play. And those are other decisions that you have to kind of live with and from. And Minsk, I was going to go there. I figured out they were going to just, after the health checkup, they'd sign me to the rest of the year. And I passed all the health checkups. And then what happened there was that they didn't have any money. They didn't want to pay any guys anymore, and they knew that they were out of the playoffs. So they actually bought out Jonas Enroth, who was, one of the best goalies in the league, played in Buffalo for years, and a number of players, and they didn't sign me. But during that whole tryout, I was getting calls, and they were calling. Team Canada was calling the coach there, Craig Woodland, and it was Sean Burke, the head of Hockey Canada. And he was calling to see if I'd be interested in playing, and Craig, the head coach of men's, was like, no, like, we're going to keep him. Like, we want him to stay. We need him. And then obviously management, higher up, they made those financial decisions, and I was able to go and play in the Spengler Cup. So because I was on the way to China to play against my old team in Beijing, when Min said, we're going to let you go to Spengler, and you can go and sign somewhere else. So I flew from Beijing to Frankfurt to Zurich, 3-hour drive to Davos. Next day. So it was a trip and a half, because we were on the out east trip. So that was my experience, but it was very late, and everybody flew in. My parents, my brother, my fiance Michelle flew in, and Team Canada treated us. I mean, they paid Michelle to come. They took care of our room, everything, class, all the meals. They gave parents all this merchandise, like jerseys, hats, all this sort of stuff, and tickets to the games. And it was an unbelievable experience there. Davos is definitely a magical place. It's Switzerland is a beautiful country in itself. Davos is, with all the history of that rink, and the tournament, and anytime that you play for Team Canada, it's obviously a special moment. And that I think that it's more special for Canadians than any other country, and I don't know why. Just so much pride playing for Team Canada in hockey. But it was just an amazing experience there, and that's kind of the confidence that I needed, because an extreme low, getting cut from in China, and everyone was asking, why are you going to China? Same thing in Slovakia. I was like, this is kind of the same thing. Maybe it's really going to work out, as how I planned it. And it didn't, but that allowed me to gain this opportunity. Be in the Spengler Cup. To, I know it was televised here, and a lot of my friends and family watched it. They hadn't watched me play in, whatever it was in years since I played in the OHL. So, I thought that was something that really, gave me a lot of confidence, and I was able to sign back in Riga. I chose to sign with them. They offered me a contract, obviously last year, but financially, I had to make my decisions. Obviously, my family and what's best for me. Out of good faith, I signed back with them to finish the year, and I ended up getting a need, and I only played like 4 games, but I got need and got suspended, and I didn't finish the season. But I'm all healthy now. But so it's been a year with confidence and I guess mental struggle. But something that I've learned all these years is that you have to definitely have to make decisions on base how you're going to feel, how you're going to play, develop, and I think that would in turn help me gain that confidence and that personal confidence, and that's I guess something that I can.
That was really. That was really well said, Matt. I appreciate you sharing all that. I think, and one of the words, you've said a lot is the word feel, right? How are you going to feel? And And one of the, a couple of the key concepts we talk a lot about with confidence and, self-belief, etc., is, having an accurate self-image and you knowing for certain who you are as a person and as a player, not inflated or deflated, right? And not worrying about what other people think and who you are and projections. And like you use the word feel, meaning like, how do I feel? How do I feel about myself? How will I potentially feel being in this situation? And taking control and owning your situation versus what a lot of people, and you go back to like why you didn't choose junior A, why you didn't play your OA year and went to UPI. You weren't worried about what everybody else thought, right? Like very clearly you did what you felt was best for you. And that's, that's what confidence is. It's not about, thinking you're the best player in the world, right? That's not what self-confidence is. And owning your story, your situation. And some days, it doesn't go your way. Like you said, going to, the coast and getting healthy scratched, or, this season and the different, ups and downs throughout, anyone's life and career. And there's owning that and making the most out of it, like you said. So, and I also really like you touched on it a bit there, the kind of a balance of being grateful for all the experiences. And there's always things we can be grateful for, even in those tough times. And so owning that and owning who you are that way, while also still wanting to keep growing. And what can I work on and own? Hey, what are the things that I can do? And if I do these things, what are the next steps? So anyways, I appreciate you sharing all that, because that's, does a great job highlighting a lot of great, life lessons, career lessons, athletic lessons about, owning your situation, having gratitude, continue to grow while definitely making sure, be aware of how you feel. Your own, like I say this a lot, your opinion of yourself matters most, right? Not what everybody else says, but you have to know who you are. And when you have a good support system and good coaches and people, that helps. But sometimes it's tough, right? Like you're going into the East Coast and you get healthy scratch, not being told why, which is pretty common. Guys getting played, guys in the O, they get played, and all of a sudden not getting played much. Coach asks why, no answer, right? Like you're not getting much sometimes, and or you don't like the answer. The answer doesn't make sense to you, and those situations are tough. But you have to kind of look in the mirror and remember that your opinion of yourself matters most. Own it and make the most out of it. So again, I liked how you touched on all that. So
I mean, like, I was always driven because my dad owns a construction company.
Yeah.
He always wanted me to go into business and
Mm-hmm.
studying that, and he was like, "Why are you going into biology? Why are you going into biology? What are you doing?" And I just, I saw how, he wasn't allowed to go to school. My grandparents from Italy,
Mm-hmm.
and he was kind of forced into his business. And I worked at a young age. I was picking up rocks at the farm at like 8 or 9 years old, and then, in holes and digging and laying grass and all those years before going to Slovakia. I was working every summer for my dad, laying grass. I'd lay grass all day, and then I'd work out at Gary's. And Gary and his trainer there, Adrian Balaka, and obviously now they're good friends of mine. They kind of pulled me aside and they said, "Listen, if you want to take this seriously, act like it."
Yeah.
I'd go into the gym. I was tired, like I wasn't lifting much. I'd go on 4 or 5 o'clock, but I'd be up at 6, driving a forklift and doing certain things that I had to do because I had to provide for myself. Like my parents were gonna, give me money to go do stuff that I wanted to do at that age.
Yeah.
And I always kind of make jokes at them because they never had to pay a dime for my schooling. I actually made money going to school.
Yeah.
But they drove me and they paid for all my minor hockey. The parents, that's something that a lot of kids don't realize until you get older, is how much sacrifice they made for you.
Yeah.
For you to play minor hockey and not knowing like what's going to happen, that like just give it up. A lot of players just, all right, give it up. And parents are playing, $10,000 a year for years to just play hockey. So I'm very grateful for that. And, the sacrifices that they made because he was running a business. and, had 2 kids, and, my mom and him had to, organize time and to try to, get us to hockey, and we had to, organize that. But I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be a construction worker. I didn't want to, I didn't want to come home late like he did. I didn't want to miss many like family dinners and events and things like that because of work, because, we had to do certain things in order to get, the house payments or whatever they had to do with their struggles. Right. So didn't want to do that. So that's one of the things where it's like, I didn't do whatever I had to do. And that means I had to work all day to go and work out and pay for my training. Cause Gary Roberts is the best that I think, in Canada or whatever, in Toronto, and I'm going to do. So I used to do it. And then, once they saw that I was a little bit more successful every year, in how I was, lifting and being on the ice, they kind of pulled me aside and said, listen, like, I think it's time that you either, all in or you're not going to see any progress. And that's when I kind of had a conversation with my dad and said, listen, I work as much. And, that's kind of how I, I guess was motivated. And that's why I'm so grateful, because, I'm doing something I love and I get paid for it, rather than do something that, I absolutely hate and despise and go to, work every day doing that. So that's why I'm, very grateful. And even with my injury, when I got kneed, I had like all cartilage, all the tendons, all everything else, everything's fine. I just had a bone bruise, but it just said, you can't put too much, pressure on it and blah, all this different stuff. I'm like, well, it could have been a lot worse. Like, I know I only played 4 games when I came to the team, but I could need surgery. I could need, could be career ending. Like, there's so many different things that, that's why, that's, I guess, those things where I'm, very grateful. And I feel, a lot of gratitude towards, the parents and that support system, for sure, because that's something that was driving me. I didn't want to do that. So I was, whatever it took. And if that meant, working and doing all that stuff, then it was worth it. It was worth going there, and it was worth sitting out. Would rather get paid to sit out than, be at home and, doing that. So that's kind of another thing that, drove me.
Yeah, I think that's great, because it's, it's having good clarity in why you're doing it and what you want in life and what you value is so important. And so I thought that was really well articulated. That's actually one thing I was going to bring up. So you kind of touched on it before I did. The other thing you're bringing up now that I did want to get into was Gary Roberts and just, his influence on you. Like you said, he's been a good role model in doing his programs, and maybe just talk a bit about the decision to start going with him. Like you said, like, one of the best, if not the best in the area in Canada and stuff, but also then what that's been like, and some lessons learned maybe he shared. I know he's somebody I'd like to get him on the like a podcast as well. I think you have lots of great lessons, but
he's an unbelievable person. The one thing that I, when I was looking up and doing some research, when I saw he broke his neck, and he came back and he played like another 10 years or something. How did he do it? Like, what did he do? And that's at the NHL level.
Yeah.
There's a saying, I mean, I never played in the NHL, but it's a saying that a lot of the guys say. It's, it's easy to get there, harder to say it.
Mm-hmm.
When you have such a serious injury, like he did, and still had an amazing career after that.
Yeah.
That not only is that physical, like, I guess, training, but it's also mental. It's also a lot of mental cues, a lot of mental mastering in order to get that body feel, that mind body connection, in order to be successful, in order to get back to where you left neck. Mm-hmm. So I looked it up, and my parents came, and when I first went to him, he was in Fitness Institute on Yonge, and it was Finch Shepherd, and he was there for a number of years. But that's kind of when I started there, and I was he had 2 programs. He had the pro program, and he had like semi-pro and OHL. So the pro program was a little out of my price range, so I was with the semi-pro program, and that was like young kids, like 16-year-old kids. I was like 25, like OHL, Junior A, all that sort stuff. So there weren't too many guys that were like my age.
Yeah.
And they're just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I played in the OHL. I'm in university, and I knew the university games were coming up, and I knew that an opportunity in 2 years in order to play. I wanted to get a little bit physically a little bit more intense with my training. And my parents didn't play hockey. They don't know anything training and who to go to, what's they kind of just helped me with research and looked up certain things and called people, and we finally found Gary, and that's when I did a lot more research. And so the first couple years I was training with a lot of younger guys, and that's when I met Connor. He was actually training because he was going to school, so he could only come after school.
Yeah.
So I was working until he was going to school, and we'd work out together. Yeah. And then once he moved up to St. Andrews, I was already playing the East Coast and been with him for a while. But the biggest advantage that I think that he has is that not only the facilities are amazing at SAC, like gym there, the hockey rink, you got your stuff in the locker room. They do your laundry and everything, like you're going into the rink.
Yeah.
But you have that nutrition aspect, and that Sylvie, she's a holistic nutritionist. She's got a wealth of knowledge, a lot of different degrees in nutrition, and she's from out east, and she's marrying one of my friends. It's a trainer there, Adrian Valaka. He was a pro fighter. He actually just gave it up because he's like the head trainer at Gary's, and he writes everyone's programs, and he does everyone's assessments. And so it's a lot of responsibility there. Still trains for fun, but those two and Gary have really helped me understand the nutrition aspect, because coming from an Italian Greek family, I had nothing but starch. A lot of pasta, a lot of I guess you could say cured meats. And, it was a lot of learning, a lot of different things that I had to sacrifices that I had to give up. I had to give up pasta. Before I went to Finland, what is this, 3 or 4 years ago, I went totally grain-free, gluten-free. I was getting some irritation and stuff like that, so I got a blood test done, and had like all these different high levels of like every single grain you can think of, and some fruits and some vegetables even. So I had to like totally change my diet. And Gary was preaching that when I first got there, but I'm like, I'm still gonna have my pasta every day. Like it's hard to tell a kid early 20s.
Oh yeah.
And he eats pasta, or you have broccoli, whatever it is, quinoa, and all this sort of stuff. Like I'm not. I went first time, and I'm like, hey mom, like you got to get some quinoa. They didn't even know what it was. Like that's the thing. Like where he was able to give us not only the training, where it's 3-phase training, but the nutritional aspect, the combination is how you become a better athlete. That's how you can stay healthy longer. These are like habits, and once he's instilled these habits in you, you kind of have a totally different outlook as to how you're going to live your life, how you're going to treat your body. And he's everything that I needed at the time, because I needed to learn how to do that. I didn't know how to oil my body to complete the functions that I wanted it to do. In order to heavier, to lose fat, I had to do certain things, certain exercises, eat certain times. So there's a lot of different things that he's helped me, along with Adrian and Sylvie, that I guess have helped me shape my hockey body, my hockey mentality, and my approach to training in general. So it's like the biggest thing, because anybody can go and write a program, but implement it to your specific needs, and to pair it with what you should be eating and how you should be doing certain exercises for, shoulder strength, mobility, whatever it is that you're weak in. And during 3 phases, your first phase you have is you're going to kind of rebuild, and you're going to strengthen certain muscles. And then second phase is going to be your strength phase, where you're lifting heavier and trying to get max weight. And then third is you're going to be your explosive phase, where you're going to get those quick muscle twitch muscles going and being able to explode into transition from stop, like you're going to be on the ice, and accelerate for a puck, or certain things like that. So those phases plus training with I guess it's training your nutritional aspect is I think one of the biggest habits that he's instilled in me.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, he takes a very, very holistic approach. And I know I didn't do it. I think I did it my last year of my plan when I was at University of Toronto. I went gluten-free. And I think I was also doing like yoga every day as well. And I worked out a lot. Like I was in the best shape of my life. It was then. Like, it's just, I remember the guys chirping me like, "Oh, this guy's, we go out to eat as a team. I'd be getting the gluten-free pass." So
no, it makes a big difference. And I couldn't believe it. And it was so hard for me, because the first time that I made the change, it was after the blood test. I was in training camp in Finland. And, I was like getting dizzy. I was feeling sick, and going to Sammy Kapanen. He's pretty well known to be a in shape guy and loving fitness. So we had like crazy fitness tests and on ice twice, and I was like struggling. And it took me a couple weeks to get around to it. But after I got used to it, I was able to go like you said, like going and looking at a menu. Okay, I can have this, this, and this, and this, and I'll pair it with this. So it gets easier as you go on, and you're able to manage it. And I was able to reintroduce a lot of different things into my diet, because I wasn't even allowed to have casein. I was only able to have like meat protein, so I'd have the meat protein powder. Like it was just a really, really interesting and learning experience that changed the way I felt, number one, and changed the way that I trained, because I was able to like get up in the morning and not be groggy and be strong, and do the different functional exercises that I needed. Rather than sometimes I wasn't able to do it because I have just past for.
So it's definitely a good influence and developing those habits. Now, there's a couple things just to wrap up. One, I'm not sure if you just wanted to touch on any kind of other lessons learned or tips for any hockey players and athletes, particularly on their mindset and confidence or dealing with pressure, things maybe you've learned and done in routines that might help with your mindset. And then there's one other thing I want to touch on after.
Okay. So I think that, obviously everyone says the same thing, that your mind is a lot more powerful than, you think. And I think that with a hockey player, we tell ourselves a lot more stories than a lot of other different people. Like we tend to psych ourselves out of a lot of different situations. I think that if you want to get ahead mentally, and if you want to be sound mentally, you have to tell yourself the story that you want to hear. I think that you have to tell yourself that you're going to be successful. Tell yourself that you're going to do what you have to do in order to be successful. You get to have those, affirmations in order to be successful. And I think that if you, have that as a daily routine, and if you have that mindset, it's a lot easier for you to, get that confidence. And like I said earlier, you can't turn confidence on and off. You have to be able to build up to it. You have to be able to, know that you have it, and telling yourself those stories, those positive affirmations that, you are good enough, or you're going to get better, and, do all the little things, you're going to be great. And those things add up. Right. So I think that is something that I would definitely, I guess that's something that I would do. I just got turned on to it, but everyone that I've read about, any CEO, any business professional, You know, after Kobe Bryant passed away, rest in peace, obviously,
Yeah.
he
Hmm.
was one of the you know, I guess most influential athlete when it comes to mental toughness. And I
Yeah.
think learning all about him and his, you know, Mamba mentality is, you know, meditation. He took time out of every
Yeah.
day, every morning to meditate. And, you know, a lot of people say, like, what is meditation? It's just, you know, you reflect on what you want out of the day.
Hmm.
You give yourself those affirmations. And, you know, by the time you're done that, 15 minutes have gone past and all of a sudden you feel a little bit lighter. You feel,
Hmm.
you know, maybe a little bit more motivated. And I think that that's a daily ritual that I kind of uh, have in myself. And it doesn't have to be the same every day,
Yeah.
the same, you know, affirmations. I think that it could be, you know, different things. It could be
It
set
evolves.
less tasks you want to perform
Mhm.
uh, in order to be successful. And it kind of just snowballs from there. So I think
Yeah.
that's something I
No, that was really well said, Matt. I think that's great, and it kind of touches on what we talked a bit about earlier, just about, you know, and you said, you know, what's the story are we telling ourselves, right? And often we're a lot of, like you said, a lot of guys tell themselves a story. They're psyching themselves out, tell themselves a story that's not helping, right? Why is this happening to me? This is unfair. All this sucks, and I don't know if it's going to happen. They're focusing on all these things that
yeah.
probably aren't really true, anyways. And they're not helpful. In fact, they're actually often hurtful. They psych you out, your arousal level goes up, they tense, you overly start doubting yourself, you play too safe, etc. So
Yeah.
you know, owning both where you are and then having the clarity and where you want to go, right? And we talk a lot about, if you really own your past and your situation and you own it and you know who you are, it's really easy to write the next page in your book, right? You talk about a daily routine and meditation, or a daily, reflection habit, and setting intentions each day. Well, it's like, that's, what are you going to do each day? You're going to, what story do I want to write today? And you're coming from a place, you know, from within, that this is what I want to do today. And you decide, right? Versus like, oh, I wonder what other people think I should do. Or, you know, worrying about this and not owning your story. And then there's all this like doubt going on. And it's like, then you're not focusing on what you want to create and what you want to do and serve. So no, I thought
Yeah.
that was really well articulated. You know, meditation is a huge thing. You know, all the guys in our daily program right now, you know, we call it like a reset routine, and, you know, amplified into, you know, even just a 2-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute meditation can, you know, are things everyone can do to keep growing and learning and be centered each day. So
Yeah, and I think that right now, I mean, obviously with the quarantine and we
mhm.
wish everybody to be healthy and to be safe and stuff like that. But if you are at home and you are healthy, I think it's an opportunity for you. I think that
Yeah.
it's a great opportunity to you know, you touched on it, reset, but also create new habits. To
Hmm.
you know, as an athlete, as you know, you learn that you have to be pretty selfish. Like, in order for us to be successful, we have to live you know, a pretty selfish lifestyle, and um,
Hmm.
that you take care of yourself, you know, you're
Yeah.
taking care of yourself all the time. If that's physically, that's mentally. If you're hungry, you're just going to go and you're going to, you know, certain things like that. And you know, that's what part of the reason why I'm so grateful to have Michelle, my fiance, because she you know, she gives up a lot in order to go to different countries, live with me in Finland, live with
Yeah.
me, yeah,
Yeah.
flew to China. We went there, and she came to the Spengler Cup, like
Yeah.
flying on a whim. And you know, that's part of you know, the gratitude that I have, that I have somebody that's grounded in a relationship that grounds me when I, you know, have all this whirlwind of you know, media and I guess influences and things like that, to act a certain way or to do certain things. But you know, you have to just kind of reflect. And I think it's a great time right now to not only to build relationships with others, but also
Hmm.
have that relationship with yourself. So I think that that's something that I've kind of been working on the past couple weeks.
Awesome. No, I appreciate you sharing it. And so the last thing, a funny story we wanted to bring up here. We obviously know each other through, you know, Ben Alavi, you know,
Yeah,
good guy, funny guy. You know, we could probably tell some funny stories about him.
yeah,
But one of the things that he mentioned to bring up was in grade 9, the high school hockey team, he gets kicked out in the semis. And then you guys are playing St. Mike's in the finals. And he says you play about 80% of the game, go on, and they're full of AAA players. You know, you guys got a single A goalie in net, and you guys go on to win an OT. You score the OT winner. You're doing a big lap. Everyone's chasing you around. So
Yeah, that was
obviously sound like a pretty special moment in your
yeah,
career.
that was. I mean, we played Villanova College. That was the team
Yeah.
that we played in. There's
Yeah.
only a couple of guys that played AAA on the team, and Benny decides to fight a guy on Ridley College. The game before, we were winning like 6-1 or 7-1 or something like that. The game was well out of reach, and
Yeah.
he decided to fight a guy. So he got suspended for the game, and we only had like 4 or 5 D at the time.
Yeah.
So we only had 4, and I was playing. I would just stay out. I would just stay like, and then if I got tired, I'd get off.
Yeah.
And our goalie, Glenn Hazlitt, his name is,
Yeah.
and he was playing AE from Newmarket Redmond.
Yeah.
And he played. He must have had 60 shots.
Yeah.
And this is, at 3 15-minute periods.
Yeah.
And there couldn't have been that many stoppages in play. We were just probably going from corner to corner in our.
Yeah.
And somehow I think we scored a goal. I don't remember how we scored the goal, but then they tied it up, and we're going into the third period, and I played probably around 80% of the game in the room with the teachers, and we're like, hey, like, you okay? Like, asking, and we had a couple other guys that played AA, and another guy played AAA, so up front. But as far as D, we only had like 3 or 4 that can actually play, and like 5 people. So the one guy was just on the bench. He was scared to get out there. St. Mike's, I think they all ended up getting drafted, probably the whole team.
Oh yeah.
Like all AAA guys, and we got into the OT. We're like, okay, boys, anything can happen. And it was, I think, first or second shift. I stayed on the whole time. This is when I had really good cardio, and I had 0 muscle on me.
Yeah.
And I took it was like almost like a one-timer off the left side at the blue line. It was wide. It hit the D-man skate in front, and it was 5-hole. And lost my mind. I just was doing laps around the ring in Ridley College, and it was hilarious because guys started like coming towards me, and they're like, "Just he's too far gone. Like, let's just go." So I was just running. I was skating, and everybody was. Ben jumped on the ice. The guys that were like injured and stuff came on the ice with their shoes and goalie. But yeah, it was a really funny story, and that's the first time that Villanova has ever won. What is it, OFSA?
Yeah, I guess that would probably be awesome.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
So they haven't won it since. May never again.
So,
I don't know. That was a funny story.
Yeah, no, that's good. And how's that stack up with like the KHL All-Star game? Is it pretty tight? Or?
Yeah, I mean the celebration was unbelievable. I mean that's the best celebration I've ever had. Other than actually, I have a great celebration last year in the outdoor game. I scored a goal, like wrapped it around or something, and I was selling through center ice, like on one knee, like giving it the pump.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I see the coaches. There's a coaches challenge, and full on Sally sliding all the way down. Outdoor game. It's snowing. The black stuff in my eyes, and it was returned.
Oh.
It was no goal. I wish I could get the video for that. It was unbelievable. It was awesome outside. Like it's a great experience. But that was also one of the most embarrassing things I've had. But at least the other one scored.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate all of this, Matt. It's those are the great stories and lessons, and wishing you all the best here, and we'll stay in touch and keep chatting, and maybe we'll also get you on with the group call later this week. So,
okay, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. All right, okay, we'll wrap it up here.
Okay, buddy.